fantastic person. Oh, it's just not working.
You've got gay porn on your TV.
Yeah, just tons of gay porn. Love the gay porn. I'm aware.
What is happening, everybody? It is time for MLB Live Before Lock. Myself and Eric hanging out back over the internet. We hung out in person over the weekend, and now back to us doing this thing over Zoom. We talk about baseball, breaking down the slate for you guys. All we're going to ask of you is to like the video and subscribe to the YouTube channel. But if you do want to support the channel, you can leave us super chats. You can do something like Chris Williams, just gifted out 5 YouTube memberships. Thank you very much, Chris. We do appreciate that. Or if you want to sign up for any of the packages that we have here at Stokastic.com, the links are down below in the YouTube description box. You can get access to all the different tools we have on the site. Any package you sign up for at Stokastic also comes with access to our Discord channel, so you can ask us questions in there over the course of the show. And hey, look at that. Chris Williams just gifted out another 5 YouTube memberships, which certainly not a requirement, but thank you very much, Chris. Always appreciate the support. Eric, what's happening? Are you still hungover or have you recovered?
I have not fully recovered. I had an absolutely fantastic time in New York. The best way to describe me amongst my friends is that I'm a golden retriever. I just like to go have fun, play, occasionally just chase after stuff. And ran around New York City with the boys. It was fun to go to the show on Friday night with you guys over at MSG, and then went out and about in the town Friday night. Saturday, probably the best basketball game of the last couple of years. Yeah. It was electric. And I think for me, that's like one of the things that coming out of this weekend, it's like, I feel like I want to talk about that basketball game, and we haven't had a chance to. I think out of anything that whole weekend, I wish the 4 of us could have watched that Saturday game together, because it was electric scenes in New York, USA chants, people, the drama was high. When Steph Curry made the arc 3, I don't think I've heard a louder bar cheer, and it's all for the same team, which, doesn't always happen depending on where you live.
Yeah. So also, news got in the chat saying, why didn't we hit him up? We talked about it on shows that we were going to go there. So it was kind of open to anybody. Like Mike Lawrence, he heard us talk about it on shows. He ended up showing up and said hi, which, yeah, if anybody was at, by the way, also, if anybody wants to go to a comedy show, Kill Tony Live, really, really fun show. Like there isn't really a comedy show quite like it. It was a really fun experience overall. So we had a really good time. Hanging out, but News God, and anybody was welcome to join us.
Well, and we're going to be doing it again. This isn't like a one-time deal too. I think that was kind of what we also learned is like, it felt so fast. Like the day we got together, I got together with Lofty first, and then we had a couple drinks, hung out, and then we went and got dinner together. Everybody met up over by MSG. MSG then went to the show. You didn't have your phone on you the whole time, which was kind of a beautiful experience where you just had to be present and laugh and listen. And it wasn't about getting this recording for social media, that recording for social media. So I really enjoyed that element of it too. But then, we don't all get to spend a lot of time together in person, and you just kind of learn a lot about each other. You kind of learn about your tendencies in person, and just a cool experience. But like, I think we definitely learned we want to do some more of it going forward.
Yeah, and I mean, to your point, there's certain things like you can see girth over a Zoom camera. You can't feel it like you can in person. So yeah, always nice to get together and hang out with the boys. We had a good time, and yeah, it's only the second time we've ever done it since we've all been working here. So
yeah,
we should be doing it more, and yeah, maybe we could do some content together in person at some point as well. And you're right, the basketball game was electric over the weekend, which it kind of felt in a lot of ways to me like a swan song for LeBron James and Steph Curry, because I think it's very unlikely that either of them are going to play in a high leverage basketball game to that degree, unless there's some kind of crazy trade that goes down, because the Lakers roster right now, fairly shit. The Warriors roster right now, very shit. So I don't think the Warriors are going to be a playoff team this year. The Lakers, potentially a fringe playoff team, but not a contender. So I don't know. We're going to see Steph Curry, LeBron James play in that kind of high leverage championship sort of scenario. And yeah, Steph had one of his patented Steph runs at the end of the game. It was awesome to watch. And I was texting with my dad about it, who was watching the game like on tape delay or something, in the way that only an old white man
your dad
could figure out how to do, where I'm like asking about the game and he's like, haven't seen it yet. I'm like, what are you talking about? And then he's all of a sudden texting me back like many hours later, and he's like, I'm in the second quarter. I'm like, okay.
What? It's so great. And the beautiful thing, though, is that he doesn't go to his phone. He wouldn't know the result of it anyway. So probably was able to watch it as though it were in real time. So it made it fun.
And Easy Bob asking Girth like a tune again, more like a Pepsi can, more like a Pepsi can. Not very long, but very wide, very wide. Let's see what else we had. I see we had a super chat here. This one came
I'm
from
okay too.
Weatherman7, and just our friend Weatherman7. He's usually more around during the basketball season. However, we do have a super chat from Weatherman7 here. It is a dancing pair. Looks like being a little sexy, waving to us, wearing the sunglasses.
A little sexy.
So thank you for the sticker there,
see
Weatherman7. Yeah, that. Why is your whole is there another earthquake in California? Your whole camera?
No, I just banged my elbow and it actually hurt, but I tried to stay with the bit. It really actually hurt.
So speaking of Weatherman7, no real weather to be concerned about today. So that's nice because that was not the case for most of last week. So let's start talking about the pitching here, Eric. There's only one real expensive pay up option on the slate. So let's talk about Chris Sale individually, and then we'll talk about some of the other pitching options that we have because Chris Sale is 10,500. He's on the road in San Francisco, so really favorable pitcher's park for him. He's the most popular pitcher on the slate. 32% projected ownership going to Chris Sale. What are you going to be doing with him, the chalkiest and the most expensive pitcher we have today?
Absolutely no problem with him. But I'm going to have a lot more Blake Snell, like a lot more, it would appear. So I'm fine with it. I'm going to have a lot of both. But yeah, they should be the two most popular plays. I mean, they're just absolutely head and shoulders above everybody. Look at their props. Look at their spot that they're pitching. I mean, I like Blake Snell more because he's lower owned and cheaper, and I have nearly lock button Blake Snell, but I have 42% Chris Sale, which is basically exactly where the field is. So do I have a problem with it at all? No, I do not.
Yeah, I'm pretty much on the same page with you, really on everything you said. My most roster pitcher on the slate is Blake Snell. I'm overweight to him, and I have a good amount of Chris Sale. He's just so popular that I'm like, even with the field, he's in less than half of my lineups. And that's what the field is doing too. They've got Chris Sale in a little bit less than half of lineups. Really good pitching option. It's hard to get way overweight to a guy who's nearly 50% owned on a slate that has a lot of other good pitching options like Blake Snell, you mentioned, in the $9,300 range. Now, Snell is also popular, pulling 35% ownership at $9,300. The other pitchers that we have that are priced around $9K, Eric, and I'll go down to Brandon Pfaadt just because he's also 26% owned at $8,600. And then once you get below him, nobody's popular at all. But the pitchers, we have $8,600 to $9,300. Pfaadt is 26% owned. We've got Luis Gil, 28% owned. Pablo Lopez, 14% owned. Freddie Peralta, 11% owned. So if you're looking to go to a pitcher who's a little bit lesser owned than Chris Sale or Blake Snell, who's your next favorite pay-up option?
Next favorite pay-up option is always going to be Luis Gil in these kind of spots. He gets the White Sox, guys. It's the freaking White Sox. I know we've had some issues with Luis Gil here of late. I know that he hasn't been as stellar as what he's been in the past for me, but I do like Luis Gil. I'm still not going to get to the field on him. Again, I am jamming Blake Snell today. There's just nothing I can do to mute the ownership. He is 9,300. It's kind of a misprice for this spot against an Atlanta team that's striking out, and the lineup as it rolls out, it's gonna be striking out quite a bit here at the same time that they have power. But then you have a great ballpark, and it just comes down to him. So I have the next most of Luis Gil. I also like Brandon Pfaadt going up against Colorado. There's no doubt about it, but I'm still underweight to both of them purely because of just how much Blake Snell I have.
Yeah, it's Luis Gil for me as well. And not that he's contrarian or anything like that, because he is projected for, 27% ownership. I think there's a really wide range of outcomes with Luis Gil, but we're talking about GPPs here and we're talking about upside. It's kind of undeniable considering his strikeout stuff, the matchup. Here are the concerns. He's been super inefficient with his pitch counts as of late, where you get some of these starts. It's like, oh my God, Luis Gil just threw 33 pitches to get out of the first inning. And the other thing too is the Yankees have talked about wanting to limit his innings because he's on some kind of innings limit, which is also just so stupid the way they're going about doing it. Do you remember Luis Gil's last start?
Yep. It's absolute moronic. It was like, everything about it pissed me off. Obviously, I just play Luis Gil ad nauseum, but I mean, I had the over of what, 6.5 strikeouts. Of course, he landed on 6. I had a little bit of a ladder going up. He had a 2-hitter going. They said that they were going to limit his 5 innings. He ended up pitching like 105 pitches or some shit.
107.
And 107, that's good. 107 pitches. And it was just like, oh, you're limiting his innings, but you're going to let him pitch 107 pitches. Congratulations, guys. You, the dumbest people in the room.
Which that's how I can't imagine that the way that teams limit pitchers is well studied or mathematically sound, because the idea that like 100 pitches is this perfect round number, this is the number that you have to limit pitchers to, and it just happens to be the best number is this perfectly round number, that seems not correct to me.
It is.
The other part of it too is why look at innings instead of pitch count? Because the last start Luis Gil had, he threw 100. And here's where I get a little bit concerned about Luis Gil. And why the actual first run of Sims I did, I had like 3/4 of my lineups or something had Luis Gil. And here's why I limited a little bit to have him in a third of my lineups. So we've heard the Yankees want to limit his innings. And then it maybe doesn't really show last start because he threw 107 pitches. I think no matter what his pitch count was, he within reason, he was going 5 innings last start. So they let him go 107 pitches. But I think if he was at 70 pitches through 5 innings, they were also taking him out last start. So you could easily have a ceiling start against the White Sox in 5 innings. I just don't know how likely it is we get 6 out of Luis Gil. And that was the one reason that kind of led me to dial back his exposure a little bit. I'm still overweight to the field on him, just not as aggressive as I was earlier.
Yeah, I'm not as aggressive on it purely because I was never going to be with Blake Snell on the slate, but I get it. It's a weird pitching slate as far as like we have guys who would have been 10K a hot second ago, and Freddie Peralta, Pablo Lopez. They've fallen on somewhat hard times based on how good of pitchers they are, but ran into some batted ball luck and had some weird stuff happen. I mean, the expected ERA for Pablo Lopez exponentially higher or exponentially lower than his actual ERA. And, he's been good against righties, yet just continues to give untimely hits up. And Freddie Peralta just feels like a lot of these slates he's been chalk and he's just come crashing down to earth. And now this is the most difficult matchup with Mookie Betts added back to this lineup. So it becomes a weird pitching slate up here at the top where I'm not going to try to force in too much Gil, too much Fott. I'm not going to try to force in too many of these other guys. I am just very, very heavy on that game that has a, 6.5 total where both guys have 7.5, 8 strikeout props.
Yeah, it's Luis Gil, Brandon Fott. I don't think that they are as good of pitching options as Snell or Sale, but each of them show up in a quarter of my lineups in the case of Luis Gil, and then a third of the lineups in the case of Luis Gil, and then about a quarter in the case of Brandon Fott. Just such good matchups. Fott pitching against the Colorado Rockies, with the Rockies being on the road, and then you got Luis Gil matchup against the Chicago White Sox and whatever's left of their lineup. So really, to me, the only question between these two guys is, do you prefer Gil or do you prefer Fott? For me, it's a slight lean towards Gil.
Yep, same here. Slight lean towards him. 22% Gil. I have 16% Brandon Fott.
Freddie Peralta, Pablo Lopez, you gravitate into either of them as somewhat contrarian spend up options, 14% ownership to Lopez, 11% to Peralta.
Nope, would have to be a different slate. I've got 7% Pablo Lopez. I have 4% Freddie Peralta.
I have 10% Lopez, 3% Peralta. So like a little bit mixed into my lineups. But for the most part, if you guys are only building a 1, 2, 3 lineups, I wouldn't be playing Freddie Peralta or Pablo Lopez.
I think it's a hard slate to just play one lineup. Don't you agree with that? I think it's actually a very difficult slate for an 8-gamer to just build one lineup.
I feel like that way about most slates for baseball.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But this one specifically, like, I would much rather attack this with a portfolio than attack it with, like, there's some baseball slates where I'm like, oh, I'll just ride or die against the most popular pitcher on the slate, or, I'll eat the chalk here, but I'll find a pivot here with the bats, and I'll I can usually make concessions to raw projection in order to maximize upside. Today, it's really hard to get away from the top of pitching, and it's really hard to get away from the top of bats, I think, too, to some extent with the Yankees and Arizona. But we'll get into those two things as well.
Let's talk about contrarian pitchers then, which is literally everybody else on the slate we haven't talked about yet. Because once you get below the $8,600 price tag on Brandon Fott, your most popular pitcher is Clayton Kershaw at 7% ownership against the Milwaukee Brewers. So let's talk about all of the 7K pitchers plus Brady Singer because he's $8,400. We haven't discussed him yet. And then we'll talk about the really cheap punt options, see if there's anybody we're liking. Brady Singer down through Jake Woodford. So that is $7,100 through $8,400. Are there any contrarian options you like?
Again, I feel like I've said this on a lot of shows recently, but the word isn't necessarily that I like Brian Bayo. I don't think of Brian Bayo being the dude, but there's no doubt that we've seen like a spike to his strikeout stuff. Like if you made me play one pitcher down here that's, not one of the guys pulling 10-ish% or more ownership, I think Brian Bayo's the guy against a Texas team that, yes, with Josh Young back, they get another solid, serviceable bat. But on the season, a 90 WRC plus against righties, that is very, very noticeable to me. And Brian Bayo, we've seen him start to accelerate some of the strikeout stuff. I went through it a little bit last night. I'm not seeing a ton different, but 7, 11, 7, 7, 6, 4 of his last 6. Maybe there's something that's going on in the pitching mix, maybe something in the sequencing. Maybe somebody sharper than me has noticed something with Brian Bayo. I think a lot of it has to do with some of the matchups that he's ran into. I think the Dodgers have power, but they strike out. Seattle's good, but they strike out. Kansas City has some strikeout bats. White Sox, another spot where you can maybe run into some strikeouts. However, the White Sox are the team that he only had 2 against, so it doesn't quite make a lot of sense. So Brian Bayo, it's been a weird season for him. The ground ball rate has to obviously continue. You have to avoid some of the issues. He just had a baby over the weekend. There's, some narrative-based stuff. I don't know what to make of it, but I do have almost 10% Brian Bayo. So I'll make one stand, and that'll be the guy.
If I had to play one of these guys, it's funny, actually, we just got a question from Mighty Quinn in our Discord channel about Clayton Kershaw. Said, Dodgers should cruise to the playoffs. Any reason they stretch out Kershaw? He hasn't been allowed to throw a massive amount of pitches so far in his first few starts, but hasn't been nothing either. He's been over 80 pitches in each of his last 2. The reason that I think you could see more from him is just so he is prepared to potentially in the playoffs. Like they've always been really cautious with Clayton Kershaw, but there's only a month left in the season. Eventually, I think they want to have him throw 90 plus pitches just to see how does it feel? Is he able to do it at this point in his career? At $7,700 on a small slate, I don't love Clayton Kershaw, but in the same way that you just talked about a lower owned guy like Brian Bayo that you're willing to get exposure to, I'm good with 10% of Clayton Kershaw and taking some GPP shots on him just because this is a pitcher historically has been really good. He hasn't been too crazy restricted. And there's a scenario where Kershaw goes out and throws 90 to 95 pitches, and maybe he gets a win and scores like 20 fantasy points and looks pretty good. At $7,700 in very low ownership, this is where I'm willing to take a chance on Clayton Kershaw.
Ooh, you are braver than me. He is throwing it sub 90 miles per hour. I know the curveball. I know that Milwaukee has smashed some righties here, and obviously Clayton Kershaw is not that, but it's still dicey in terms of strikeouts on this slate. Like, I feel better about Brian Bayo that we're going to continue to see strikeout stuff from him. I think he'll get lit up more than Kershaw in some of these spots. 3.90 expected ERA for Kershaw. He's run a little bit bad in terms of that, but slider, curveball, that's going to be the way he has to get by. It's going to be tons and tons of peppering off speed stuff. I don't know if we see that version of Clayton Kershaw ever again, where he's even like close to 22, 23, 24% strikeout rate. I'm not sure. I think it's a little perspective, but like he's got so much mileage, 36 years old, not throwing it even 90, 91 miles per hour here in a lot of these starts. I find it tough to want to like make him the dice roll. I get it. Name recognition down here in this range completely makes sense, but I weirdly feel better about Bayo for what it's worth.
Yeah, and I mean, another part of this too is like, yeah, I mean, I clearly don't think that he's great anymore at this point in his career, but he's also $7,700. We don't have to have him be really good. Like there was a slate not all that long ago where he was really popular on a night slate pitching against the Philadelphia Phillies, where somebody had asked us a question about, and now he's way cheaper than that. He's $7,700. The pitchers who are priced closely to him are Davis Daniel, Jake Woodford, Joe Musgrove, and Brian Bayo. When that's the comparison, I mean, Musgrove has also been good recently, So like Musgrove and Kershaw to me are like comparable, but like I'm not ready to say that Kershaw is worse than Davis, Daniel, Jake Woodford, or Brian Bayo. That's really more where I'm at with Kershaw, where he's priced.
I totally get what you're saying. I'm simply saying that I don't know about the strikeout stuff ever again as long as he lives, which I guess is kind of a problem.
Let's look at the cheaper pitchers. Now the punt guys. So, and also none of these people, I'll speak for Eric a little bit here, are people that we're really strongly advocating for. We like the pay up options on this slate. It's more so if you're looking to be contrarian, these are the ones who are showing up in some of our lineups. Like Eric said he had 10% of Brian Bayo. I've got 10% of Clayton Kershaw. Not a massive investment. Right. Cheap pitchers. Tyler Mahle, Bowden Francis, Kai Bush, Bradley Blaylock, all dog shit options, but all cheap. None of them pulling ownership. Do you give a shit about any of these goofballs?
You know, I think I'm okay without him. I think I'm okay. I'm not going to play a single one of them. I have 0% of any of them. 150 lineups, 0 of them.
I've got, of these pitchers, I have the most of Bowden Francis, and that's 3% of him.
It's just not going to be doing it. I'm rerunning some stuff here right now, and I'll tell you if I do get to any of them. But I mean, I'm just running our projections and running. You know, I didn't make a ton of the tweaks here coming back from the road. So I'm trusting the data. It looks pretty like non-necessary to me. Like today, if Blake Snell doesn't pitch well, I'm probably gonna have a bad day. But I think I'm okay to be very, very heavily there, taking some small educated stands with some leverage. And then the bats, I do have like 2 teams that I'm taking pretty large stands with relative to the field. And yeah, that's kind of it for me right now. I mean, I really don't find a lot of reasons to be going like bargain basement outside of like, hey, I want to play the Dodgers now that they're a fully operational Death Star again, and they are very expensive.
And if anybody wants us to evaluate any of their lineups in the single lineup simulator and you're in Discord chat, throw that in. If you're in the YouTube chat and you want us to check it out, throw that in, because Eric and I were going to look at the FanDuel pitchers now, and then we'll look at some of your guys' lineups. So if you want to submit them, go ahead and do that. And Jordan Klein will be on high alert to submit some of those lineups. And also, if you guys haven't done yet, like the video and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Shout out to Underdog, who is sponsoring the show today. How many best ball drafts in are you at this point?
I have 228, I believe. I did a ton of them. I did like 30 or 40 when I was in the lobby waiting for my flight on Thursday night. Yeah, let me double check Underdog. On DK, I only have like $400 or $500 wrapped up, and I don't know how many it is because they make it impossible to count or do anything correctly on best ball there. But Underdog.
By the way, if you actually want to know how many you have, go to upcoming.
Okay.
Click best ball and then upcoming contests. It says next to that.
Upcoming contests and contests.
If you're curious to know.
I am curious to know. I want to know, but I have all my lineups that are blocking it here at the moment.
Yeah, click on the.
I'll do it by sport. No, I'll just do it by sport. That's the smart kid way to do it. It'll have NFL there. Tell you, I have. Yeah, it doesn't tell me on the desktop here how many lineups I have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then
all right.
Couple of 20s.
Well, if you guys are looking
20s,
for some best ball drafts over on Underdog, sign up using the link we have below. 50% deposit bonus up to $250. And don't forget, best ball rankings totally free over at Stochastic. So go ahead and check that out. If you guys are looking for best ball projections, no better price point than free. And that's what the price is over at Stochastic. All you have to do is just make a free account, and then you could check out any of the stuff that we have for best ball and our best ball projections. They're exportable to a CSV. Just upload that directly to Underdog, DraftKings, Drafters, and then it'll have our rankings set as your rankings when you go to do drafts. Let's talk about FanDuel pitching now, Eric. And what kind of makes the FanDuel slate interesting to me is that we can only play one of these pitchers. So over on the DraftKings side of things, we have all this condensed ownership on the high end. And while that's also the case on FanDuel, it gets a little bit more spread out amongst the stud options because there are so many good ones to look at. So Brandon Pfaadt is 19% owned on FanDuel. He is the most popular pitcher. Chris Sale, still popular at 13% ownership. Then you got Blake Snell at 15%. It just gets, like I said, a little bit more spread out because of you could only roster one of these pitchers, and there's so many of them that people want to be getting to. Cash games, who would be the cash game pitcher you go to on FanDuel? Do you go with Fott? Do you pay up for Chris Sale? Do you go to Blake Snell? Who would be your option?
I play Blake Snell. I'm playing Blake Snell in my one lineup. 10-2. I know he's $1,000 more, and I know that you could say, oh, 4% here, 5% there. I'd play Blake Snell. I'd play the best option, the one that I believe is the best at price, like price per dollar. And in terms of pure upside, I don't mind Fott and Sale for tournaments. Obviously, they both have a case to be made. FanDuel, if you want to get to an extra bat or two, Fott can get you there. But I think the 5-6% is pretty negligible with how I have Blake Snell projected today. So I will take Blake Snell.
For cash games, I'm going to say Fott. Not because I disagree with you on like the upside of Snell or anything like that. It's just the matchup against the Rockies is so simple that I think it just gives him such a high floor for cash games. So that's why cash games on FanDuel, I would say go with Fott. But I don't think you're wrong for playing Sale. I don't think you're wrong for playing Snell. My preference would just be Fott over on FanDuel cash games. For GPPs, would you also be going to Snell if you were playing one GPP FanDuel lineup?
I am playing FanDuel today. I deposited on FanDuel, getting ready for NFL, and it's just money now sitting in my account that I'm like, it is time. I haven't played FanDuel like all year. I've just had like a couple $100 just sitting there and randomly play this GPP, that GPP for basketball this year. It was almost exclusively DK, which I think was kind of a mistake. I've generally been an advocate of playing 4, 5, 6 different sites. It's just simply trying to do good content at the same time that I'm betting a lot more than I have in years past. So I'm trying to just be conscious of, bankroll management and also catering to a lot of the betting audience and making sure that I'm doing things correctly. So I practice what I preach there, but I'm adding FanDuel back to the life here for NFL and wanted to get a head start on it. So I'm playing a bunch of lineups over on FanDuel today, and I'm going to be rolling out the most Blake Snell. I've also got, so I've got 40% Blake Snell. I have 20% Chris Sale, and then I have 12% Brandon Fott. So I'm a little bit under on him, but like still in the portfolio of lineups. I think the one pitcher that we didn't talk about at all for DK that I think is at least more interesting for FanDuel is Brady Singer at 8,800, 4.7% ownership. He's been really, really good against right-handed bats. He has a lefty problem, and I think I'm going to play my Twins quite a bit over on DK today, but I think Brady Singer has enough in the tank there. I'm not going to be rolling the dice on it on a 2-pitcher site, but on a 1-pitcher site where maybe he gets you through 6, maybe he gets you the 5-6 strikeouts, and he's sub 9K, and he's only $800 more than Clayton Kershaw. He's only $600 more than Joe Musgrove, and these are guys that are pulling the same ownership as him, which I find to be just kind of incorrect. Luis Gil's priced out a little bit of the FanDuel slate for me. So yeah, Brady Singer's the one guy that I have almost 10% of that I have almost 0 of over on DK.
Yeah, it's hard for me to get behind Brady Singer on either site. Just, $8,800 on FanDuel, matchup on the road against Minnesota. Yeah. You'll probably like my answer. I think the guy I'd want to go with one lineup still just be Blake Snell, which I know is your preference there. One thing that has made it more difficult for me to play GPPs on both DraftKings and FanDuel for baseball more so than other years. There's been so many more late scratches in baseball this year than there's ever been before, where it's really hard when a lineup changes right before lock to be managing on both sites. It's something that has always been a factor for me for basketball, but for baseball, didn't really matter as much to this year. So that has made FanDuel fall a little bit by the wayside for me in terms of my MLB play this year. On top of that as well, FanDuel hasn't had, they've really killed the sizing of their contests for baseball this year, where there's been a lot of main slates on FanDuel where I'll go and look at it. It's like, biggest GPP of the night, $60,000 prize pool, 10K to first place. Not that I'd win $10,000 and say like, this isn't worth my time or anything like that. Just if I could only pick one site to play because of late swap concerns, DraftKings is just the more appealing prize pool. So that's what got me away from FanDuel a little bit more this year. I've played some slates there because every once in a while there's a slate I prefer on FanDuel relative to DraftKings. But anyway, GPP option for me, Blake Snell is my favorite.
Absolutely. Completely understandable. Pretty much everything you said, I've felt at different points in time. It's more of like, I know with football coming back, I was like, I'd like to give it a little bit of a run here. And we have so many great tools that, obviously can be utilized for both sides. So I wanted to, throw 20 lineups in that main GPP today over on FanDuel. So I'm not playing a ton. I'm just, kind of trying to add a little bit here, a little bit there where I can, because I still think that there's some pronounced edges. And, for me today, that is Blake Snell over on FanDuel. So I'm going to be rolling quite a bit over there.
Let's go ahead and look at Jordan. Did anybody submit a lineup for you to put into the single lineup sim? So pull up the DraftKings.
That's cool. That's lovely.
Yeah, let's see. Was there anybody in Discord?
What?
Jordan just had a stroke, I think.
The fuck did he just say?
He just said a bunch of consonants at once.
That's
Very
the guy's name.
inappropriate, actually.
Kevin Keller. I'm building
Why don't you shut up, you-
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I couldn't really understand what it was. that
Couldn't
you were
either.
saying, but
He
let's see.
wasn't
What
saying it
is-
correctly.
What is the lineup that Kapanikella submitted?
Are you
Was
so
it
stupid?
in? All right, you plug it in, then we'll check it out. Okay, we did get a super chat here, a couple of super chats. One of them's from Jorge. Jorge Jacomi says, Milwaukee is a contrarian team against a rusty Clayton Kershaw.
Yep.
Eric, are you playing yourself any Milwaukee stacks? I know that you
Sure
weren't
am.
super high on Clayton Kershaw as a pitcher. Does that mean you're interested in stacking against it by chance?
Yeah, I think for DFS purposes, I mean, I'm not in love with this game, like the total to just be slamming it over or anything. I mean, these are two pitchers that throughout the years have just been fantastic, but like people don't want to play this game. I'm going to play it. I mean, these are pitchers that have just had some alarming stuff here. Clayton Kershaw, the velocity, we knew that it wasn't there from last year. So, we don't have to go completely crazy there, but like no swing and miss, none. I mean, it has just been brutality. He's limited barrels, limited walks. So those are problematic things when you're talking about stacking, where you really want to keep the line moving on FanDuel and DK looking for some power. But then the Dodgers are back, man. I mean, the Dodgers with this lineup, I mean, these are the kind of spots that earlier in the year when Betts was healthy before he broke his hand, that we were just like, all right, if the Dodgers are going to be 5-6% on it, any slate against any pitcher, you just kind of do it. And so that's kind of the way I look at this. It's an 8-game slate, and I don't see how the Dodgers aren't extremely appealing. It is hard to make them work with all of the main poppers you want to get to, but I want to point out Gavin Lux. This dude has been on another stratosphere here lately. The guy is just absolutely smashing baseballs. And like what we've seen from Gavin Lux here a little bit, now batting fifth, this guy was, AAA player of the year. He had his entire season wiped out last year by a torn ACL. He then gets the yips, the knoblocks in spring training, is working himself back from it. We're starting to see the stuff. 263 expected batting average. He's now in the middle of like the most dangerous lineup in baseball, 1 through 6. I really like getting to like him as your salary saver on both sites to be able to kind of utilize different builds with him as a guy to allow you to get to Ohtani and Betts and Freeman and Teoscar and Will Smith and whomever else. Even Mr. Kiki Hernandez has been absolutely out of his freaking mind, where, I mean, Kike has just been out of his mind in a way where he got new glasses, apparently. Did you read about that?
No, I honestly have no clue what you're talking about. Like
he
somebody
got
punched
brand
him? He
new
got hit with a
glasses.
baseball?
So yeah, he wasn't picking up on the baseball, wasn't reading it well. And one of his teammates, I can't remember who it was. It was not like a prominent, it was somebody that basically was like, you need to get your eyes looked at and you need to figure out some different frames. And now he apparently is picking up on the baseball completely differently. And he's batting 8th today, been smacking it as well, been batting cleanup at times here for the Dodgers. I want to point out that he is absolutely completely changed over the last couple of weeks. So I don't buy into like short 14-day, 28-day sample sizes very often. But when I saw that article and read it, I think it was LA Times that had it posted, or it was somebody yesterday when I was on the plane. I can't remember. I was so tired. But also Hernandez really kind of said that it's an actual thing where he's just completely seeing the ball differently now.
Interesting. Yeah. Didn't know about that. Was not aware of that that narrative there. So the question, what was it? Yeah, Jorge asking, Milwaukee's a contrarian stack today against a rusty Kershaw.
And I kind of just made it both sides of it. I like both sides
I don't really have Milwaukee stacks. I do have Dodgers stacks. Not really Milwaukee as a team I'm getting to. One other thing to be concerned about is I'm playing, once again, a very small amount of Clayton Kershaw in the hopes that maybe he's allowed to throw 90 plus pitches. The Dodgers have a very good bullpen behind him. If you get another one of these starts where he throws 4 or 5 innings, you just don't want half of the game to be against the Dodgers bullpen. So Brewers for me, lower priority. I do like the Dodgers, though, as a contrarian team, like Eric had said there. What is the contrarian team overall you have the most exposure to?
The San Diego Padres.
And by contrarian, I'll say any team sub 10% owned, because we have 3 popular teams on the slate: the Blue Jays, the Diamondbacks, the Yankees, and then everybody else is fairly contrarian. So is that the team for you, Padres, only pulling 5% ownership against Jake Woodford?
Yeah, I'm doing things very differently than I normally do on today's slate. I mean, the Yankees are unbelievably popular. I'm not going to full fade them, but I am much, much lower on the Yankees today because I think this ownership could get insane. Like, it could get absolutely insane. And Arizona's the team between the 2 chalky ones that I have more of today. They've been number 1 in baseball over the last 14 days in WRC plus against right-handed pitching. And then over the last 30 days, WRC plus, they're out of control too. I mean, it's just been a pretty ridiculous change. And part of it is Corbin Carroll getting healthier. Corbin Carroll is very functional against right-handed pitching. And we are just finding an Arizona team hitting its stride here against a Colorado bullpen that I do not find to be all that worrisome. And I don't think there's a ton of pinch hit risk too. The only lefty in the pen for Colorado, what is his name? Because it's not the Jeffrey dude anymore. It is, let me find it here quick. Yeah, on today's active roster, 0. Yeah, you heard me. 0 lefties in the pen. It would have to be Austin Gomber or Kyle Freeland, which I do not expect because they're both expected to be starting over the course of this week. I guess Kyle Freeland Friday and Mr. Austin Gomber expected to start tomorrow. And so with every single righty in there, I know Corbin Carroll isn't going to be pinch hit for, and that just makes me feel so much better.
My favorite contrarian stack on the slate, it's the Texas Rangers going up against Brian Bayo. And for the most part, I know that you had mentioned that Brian Bayo has looked better in some of his recent starts, but overall for the year, and actually overall for his entire career, he's been pretty shitty. And also very homer prone, super high home run to fly ball rates. Last year, 17.1%. This year, 20% overall, 5.16 ERA, 4.76 expected ERA. And then even though the ERA is a little bit higher than the peripheral stats, he gives up so much hard contact that I do think it's reasonable that he's a pitcher who would underperform his peripheral stats. So just a not very popular Texas team. I'm playing the Rangers in single entry. That's also the team I have the most exposure to in large field GPPs. I like the upside against a homer-prone Brian Bayo.
So you're on the same page as me with the Yankees just being ungodly chalk potential?
So I have both the Diamondbacks and the Yankees. They're 2 of my, let's see. Yeah, they're 2 of my 5 most rostered offenses, but they're both popular enough that I'm underweight to them.
Yep. I'm the 100% exact same way today. And it's very interesting because I feel like there's been a lot of slates lately over the last week or 2. It's not planned. We don't talk about any of this stuff ahead of time. We get on shows and we talk about what the data is showing us here at Stochastic and try to really relay the results of us building multiple lineups, of us talking through the process. And today, we didn't talk about this at all, but to both be lower on the Yankees and Arizona than what the field is a little bit surprising. Arizona, I have more of than the Yankees, but I am very underweight to the Yankees, and I'm just a little underweight to Arizona.
Who was all the lineups that we've put in so far have rated out really well. What was the last one you put in, Jordan? Who had submitted that one?
Nice.
Nice. Yeah, that lineup was looking pretty good. It had a very high sim ROI from what I saw there. So good lineup there. And Swaz sent one to me. Swaz, if you, oh no, never mind. This is the one he sent the other day. But yeah, if anybody has lineups to send in Discord, send them in the main chat. Don't DM me. It's kind of hard for me to see the DMs when I'm looking at the main chat from for the MLB channel.
Well,
so
my
send them in there.
My dick pics get priority now. My dick pics get priority.
There was one other super chat here. Actually, a couple of super chats. K Thumbs wants to know any Snell sale lineups. Yeah, shit ton of them. I have a lot of Snell lineups. I assume same for you, Eric. Okay. Yeah, Coley Poston put in a lineup here. Sale, Snell, Castillo, Bell, Torres, LeMahieu, Perdomo, Judge, McCarthy, Stanton. Who wants to know the ROI of it? It is a Yankees D-back stack. It's going to be a popular one, but yeah, projects out pretty well there with a 25% sim ROI. And yes, like I said, as far as the Yankees and the D-backs both go, I get exposure to them just less than the field. I mean, we've got the Yankees projected for 17% ownership as a team. So I actually have 15% Yankee stacks, Eric, but that's still less than the field. I'm not playing them in single entry either. I mentioned I'm playing the Rangers in single entry. Who's the team you would be stacking if you're playing one single entry lineup?
San Diego.
Okay. Yeah, I don't have an issue with that.
Yeah, San Diego, they get to take on. It has more to do with this ballpark. It's just absolutely insane here. Jackson Merrill now making a push for NL Rookie of the Year over
He's not
Paul
passing
Skeens.
Skeens. Please.
I mean, that is just insane to even think that that's remotely possible. But I mean, you're gonna get to see that matchup at some point in the next couple days, which will be fun. Let's see here. Yeah, it's gonna be San Diego for me for sure. I mean, Jake Woodford is terrible, horrible, no good, very bad. He did get up to 71 pitches on the 31st, but he also pitched on the 6th here most recently. I think we get a fully stretched out game from him. And as such, dude's got like a 7.4 ERA. He's absolutely horrible. And I repeat, the ballpark, Petco, #1 in baseball for home runs over expectation in Baseball Savant. You take it off the 3-year rolling average. Somebody tried to tell me about they are changing something with the gates at the stadium, or they're closing them down, and it's stopping some of the hurting wind that potentially would swirl around. Now it's like playing a little downstream potentially. I don't know. All I can tell you is that in the data, Petco has played way smaller this year. So for me, the Padres my single entry team today.
What's the team you have the most exposure to overall? Is it the Padres? Is it somebody else? By the way, Coley Poston, your lineup looking positive there, 9.4%. sim ROI. And I think one thing that, oh yeah, sorry. The one from Discord, 9.4% sim ROI. It looks like it might not be is that a 4-man is it not a 5-man stack? Yeah, just probably if you had like one more player stacked from the Yankees or Rangers to make it like a 5-3 or a 4-4, probably project a little bit better for more correlation, but still looks fine. 9.4% sim ROI. Sorry, what were you saying, Eric?
Oh, I didn't add anything else. For me, it's just like I 100% understand why Texas is your team that you're getting to the most. For me, it's going to be San Diego is one. Arizona's 2. I have 11% of Arizona. Again, I'm 1% under the field on it. I am so flat. And the reason that I am is that I'm taking like almost double digits in Minnesota here against Brady Singer. I want all of the lefties, Trevor Larnach, Max Kepler, and then specifically Matt Wallner, who's going to be my home run call. I like getting to the Dodgers nearly 10%. That's double the field. I like getting to Kansas City against Pablo Lopez, against my boy. Yeah, you know, he's my poor sweet boy. Pablo Lopez just dying routinely here. I like Milwaukee getting overweight to them against Kershaw. I talked about that earlier. I just have so many spots that it's like I'm taking double the field. And that's just truly all coming out of the New York ownership where I have 2. Yes. 2% of 5-man New York Yankees stacks today. Rip me.
We've got Mr. Cool Cam asked us for FanDuel stack. So my answer on FanDuel, my favorite stack for a FanDuel GPP, it's the same as over on DraftKings, the Texas Rangers. The Yankees are so popular on FanDuel, like the individual hitters, especially in small field stuff. I mean, this team's projected for 22% FanDuel ownership. I mean, what are the Yankees on an 8-game slate? Are they going to be what 35% owned in single entry on FanDuel? So it's hard for me to justify. It's clearly a great spot for them against Kai Busch, but it's just the ownership. If a third of the field is playing them in single entry, it's hard to think that their odds of being the top scoring team are above that. I'm going to stick with the Texas Rangers as my team to be getting to. If you look at the ownership on FanDuel, 22% to the Yankees as a stack, 12% to the Diamondbacks, and then every other team coming in at single-digit ownership. Padres only 6.6% owned on FanDuel. If you like them for single entry on DraftKings, Eric, is it reasonable for me to assume you like them on FanDuel for single entry?
Love them. They're my highest owned team on FanDuel as well amongst the 20 lineups. And then, yeah, so I've got 35%. You can actually play just a little bit more on FanDuel because obviously the way that it works out, 4-4. Atlanta, San Francisco, I'm really not playing a lot of batters from that one, like 0. And then I have actually 0 New York Yankees on FanDuel. It is such a drastic difference in terms of the ownership. I just full faded them. That's why I wanted to play FanDuel today. You've got Judge at 4,700. If you played him, go right ahead. Have fun. He's a really good play. All of these Yankees are really good plays, but they are insanely popular. I'm going to be playing more Ohtani instead of Aaron Judge. I'm going to be playing, some Mookie Betts there at 3,700 as opposed to 4,200 Juan Soto. I'm just going to be getting to the Dodgers as kind of my contrarian stance, and much easier to fit those guys alongside of Blake Snell than the inverse, which is, obviously I'd have to get to some cheaper pitchers and try to force in some stuff for the Yankees where Brandon Pfaadt. That's why we're seeing his ownership as crazy as what it is on FanDuel. So I'm just staying away from that build altogether.
Yeah, and I see we got this lineup that was submitted. I think this is the lineup, if I'm not mistaken, that Chris Williams left as a super chat. Paying it forward, this came from Comment God, and then it's a lineup in there. That's that lineup, if I'm not mistaken, Jordan. Yeah,
I do have one share of Jazz Chisholm.
Sim ROI. I would say one way you could improve it is that looks like a 4-man Diamondback stack. I would probably take out Benintendi. Is there a hitter from the Diamondbacks who's comparably priced to him? Let me see. What's the price point on Benintendi? Never mind. He's 2,300. So maybe that isn't a possibility. Prices of the outfielders on the Rangers. Is there any remaining salary in that lineup or no, Jordan? Damn. $100 more and we could have gotten Alec Thomas in at 2,500. Yeah, I'd prefer for it to be a 4-man stack, a 5-man stack to a 4-man stack. But if the pricing permits it, so you could only have the 4, it still rates out as positive ROI. So not the end of the world there. It looks like a decent enough lineup there, Comment God. Eric, let's talk about other contrarian stacks. Are there any of the high-owned pitchers that you're looking to stack against to get leverage against?
I think Kershaw might get some kind of ownership going his direction, but I doubt it.
I mean, like, the chalky pitchers. Kershaw,
right? No, I'm not going to stack against Sale or Snell or. I'll have a little bit against Luis Heel. I'll have some White Sox, but just finishing that up here now. I'm doing my last sim run here now that we got some lineups rolling in and everything's finishing up on that end. My last run had 2% White Sox. I doubt I'm going to be playing them a lot as 5-mans, but I'm going to have them littered around. Luis Heel, he's been fantastic. I love him. This is a phenomenal spot. But I know that they're limiting his pitches. I like the top pitchers more. And then, he does have a walk problem. It pops up randomly. It's really hard to account for. And talking stacking, yeah, I could probably get to more than that 2% number and be happy. He'd probably be the only one that I'd take any kind of shots amongst the chalky guys today.
Are there any other contrarian teams that are showing up in your lineups? Because I do have one that is showing up a fair amount for me.
Is it the LA Angels?
Yes, sir. They're so cheap, and I like the matchup.
I mean, Zach Neto batting second now too.
It's a shitty pitcher against a shitty offense. Bowden Francis was considered a very good prospect not all that long ago, but he's 28 years old. The results haven't been there. 5.44 ERA, 5.15 expected ERA. He's a 33% ground ball rate and a 17% home run to fly ball rate. I feel like something has to give in this matchup. Either Bowden Francis is going to keep being terrible or the Angels offense is going to keep being terrible. And I'm siding more with the Angels offense side of the equation here. So at low ownership and also very cheap price point, I've got myself double-digit exposure to the Angels. It's the team that I'm overweight to. The two teams I'm most overweight to today are the Rangers and the Angels.
Bowden Francis sucks. I'm totally with it. Again, they're just another team. I like so many teams, and that's kind of the deal today for me. And that's why I got away from the Yankees. I think it's easier to get away from the Yankees on a day like today where there's so many good, like, like elite hitter. Like I'll call Zach Neto, Logan O'Hoppe elite for their position at least this season. There's like really good hitters in really good spots that I don't have to force in the Yankees. Like there's some slates, and even like 12 game slates, 13 game slates, where you're looking at the Yankees and you're like, they're not owned enough. Oh, they're owned enough today. All right. So if they burn me, they burn me. It is what it is. But I think that this is the type of slate where I'm very comfortable getting to that near 8, 10, 12% ownership for multiple teams and just trimming it directly out of the 20-ish% ownership that you're looking at for the Yankees.
Yeah, so when it comes to the Yankees, like I said, it's a good team. Play them in cash games. I have exposure to them in GPPs, just less in the field. They are going to be insanely popular today. Single entry, I really hope the Yankees don't go off because they're going to be like 30+% owned in single entry. So anybody but them. By the way, I don't know if you saw, but the Blue Jays lineup just came out, and it's not a very good looking lineup.
Does it have Vlad?
It does, but Ernie Clement is leading off, and it doesn't have Springer.
God.
Here are the last 4 hitters in the lineup: Wagner, Jimenez, Loperfido, Baroa.
Sounds like butthole.
Yeah, it's not great. It's not great. Anything else that's important to you as far as stacks go? If not, we'll do our home run picks, and we'll wrap up for the night.
No, I think we're all set. Alex Bregman yard here in the early games. So Houston money line. If you're in the Odd Shopper Discord, let's go. It's time to have a big betting night. It's good to be home. Good to be back in the home base and kicking it after a fun weekend. But like, it's work time, baby. So yeah, let's go make some money here in the DFS streets too.
All right, let's wrap this up then, Eric. And also, you got people in chat. You know the deal. If you got any home run picks for the day, throw them into chat. Also, just going to double check to make sure there weren't any final questions that came into Discord. Oh, Ethan7 just left a question. He wants to know my top roster guys at each position on DK. I am going to have to rerun this for the lineup that we got for the Blue Jays. But for me right now, we go back and forth, Eric. At pitcher for me, that is Blake Snell for you.
Blake Snell.
Catcher, that is Jonah Heim for me.
It is.
And it's just going to be correlated to
Higashioka for me.
Nate Lowe for me at first base.
It is. Sorry, it's taken forever. Nolan Shanuel.
Second base for me, that is Marcus Semien.
It is Jake Cronenworth.
Third base, Brandon Drury for me.
It is. Get the watered down no Manny. That's so funny. I'm going through here. And Henio Suarez.
Shortstop, Corey Seager.
Is Hae-Sung Kim.
Outfield for me, Leody Taveras. Very cheap.
And Jackson Merrill.
All right. So there we have it. Now, dong time, Eric. Who's going to go yard today?
So Jackson Merrill's like, I know it sounds stupid because I don't think he's going to be that popular and obvious. He's just having an unbelievable second half of the season. And he had a great first half of the season. We're just starting to see him take that power and elevate it and making it capable of going yard. It's beautiful. But I want to point out Matt Wallner today going up against Brady Singer. Talked about the lefties from Minnesota, my Minnesota Twins here. Brady Singer has a 228. Yes, 228 expected ISO against. And I think Matt Wallner, every single time I brought him up on this show as my home run play, he then hits a home run. So jinxed that there. But 370 ISO, and it was higher in AAA against right-handed pitching. 320 expected ISO against right-handed pitching on the season. 21.3 degree average launch angle, 7 bombs against. I mean, the dude is out of control. Batting cleanup. I know these are big games, huge games here for my Twins coming off of, I'd say, a disappointing end to that series there against the Cleveland Guardians. But they need to win some games here. The Royals, they're going to be going toe-to-toe here for this wild card as well. Probably going to be tough to catch up with Cleveland here at this point in time. But both teams really, really want this one. I think the lefties get it done here for us. Larnach, Wallner. I want to point out Wallner, though.
Corey Seager is going to be my home run pick against Brian Bayo. That's the guy I'm going with. Now we'll go into chat and see Jeff Matthews going with Jorge Soler. Comment God also going with Jorge Soler. Let me scroll up a little bit here. Taylor Ward from Wookie, Wallner from BX, Mickey Moniak from David Wayne, Aaron Judge, the pick from Ross. Aaron Judge feels like cheating.
Contrarian. Way to go. Thanks. Thanks for adding to our program.
We didn't make a rule against it. Perdomo from Obi-Wan, Giancarlo Stanton from Robert Grease, Charles Moran going with Del Castillo, Judge Soto and Stan from Nice, Kevin, Corbin Carroll, or Gavin Lux from JC Swee. Mike Campbell going with Helio Ramos. We've got Marcelo Ozuna from Hayes. Let's see, Royce Lewis from Aaron Hines, Ha-Sung Kim from Andy Melman, Giancarlo Stanton from Malukar, Willie Adames from Francisco Rubio, and then we've got Byron Buxton from Dangerous Dave, Jackson Merrill from Chris Williams. Jordan, bring it home. Who is going to go yard in your best assessment?
Hey, Sung Kim. Corbin Carroll. Yeah, of course he's playing.
Corbin Carroll. There it is. Corbin Carroll. That's the dong pick from Jordan. Guys, thank you very much for watching. If you have not done yet, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Good luck with your lineups tonight. We'll see you back here tomorrow.